Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. But if you're new here, my name's Tyler and I just do consistent content on all things related to hockey in the NHL overall. And we have our second trade to announce today. We all knew this was going to happen. The second deal between the San Jose Sharks and the Minnesota Wild. This time, Devan Dubnyk, the 34-year-old goaltender on the final year of his contract. Same thing with Ryan Donato, both being sent off to the San Jose Sharks. I did my video on Donato, so if you're interested in that, make sure to check it out after this one if you haven't. But Dubnyk, I've been such a huge fan of Dubnyk, really back since the 2009-2010 season, and I will touch on that in a minute. But in return, the Minnesota Wild are going to be getting a 2022 5th round pick and a 2022 7th round pick, while the Wild also retained 50% of Dubnyk's salary. So already this was a great move for the San Jose Sharks with this retained salary, something that beforehand didn't seem as likable on my end of things of why it would make sense for San Jose. But getting that salary retained especially is huge for them, and this was a very interesting trade to say the least. We all knew this was going to happen over the past 48 hours. Same thing this morning with Donato. I don't know why that those two deals were separate. It would have made sense to do them together, but they obviously had their reasoning to some extent. But let's just get right into it, okay? Devan Dubnyk, originally drafted in the first round back in 2004 by the Edmonton Oilers, and the reason why I've been such a big fan of his is back in 2009-2010 area when I started following the NHL, I wanted to pick a Western Conference team to start following to help me branch out and stay up later for nights for Western Conference games. And I picked the Edmonton Oilers because while they weren't good by any means during that time, I figured, you know, they're going to be getting these first round picks. They could be on the come up. And I was a huge fan of Taylor Hall. Needless to say, so I was so happy when he went to Edmonton, and I was really upset when they of course got rid of him. But nonetheless, when it comes to the Oilers and Dubnyk, I loved watching him during his time there. He was kind of up and down in his career there, but I don't really give him any fault there as I do the team and management and the coaching in general. There was a constant rotation, revolving door, if you will, of people in management and in coaching going in and out during that time for the Oilers for quite some time, really. But nonetheless, Dubnyk has always been a very solid goaltender in the AHL, and it's such a great story when you look at what happened to him in the 2013-2014 season. He went from being an average goaltender in the NHL to possibly falling out of the league completely, only to in the end have one of, if not the best comeback in NHL history, at least in recent memory. If you look at what Dubnyk's done, at least so far, the 34-year-old goaltender, he's 6'6", 224 pounds, and he only played 30 games this past season for the Wild, but taking into account he was out for quite some time for personal reasons, and I believe it went in hand with his wife. I could be wrong, so if I am, let me know in the comments below, but I believe it was a situation regarding his wife, and she had some type of illness or something going on there, which was really unfortunate. I hope the best for them. But Dubnyk, having that on his shoulders as it is, he only had a short stint this year, only playing 30 games, had 12 wins, 15 losses, and 2 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 3.35, and a save percentage of 890. So these were easily the worst stats he's ever had in a Minnesota uniform, but nonetheless, between his age and the situation happening this past season regarding his family, I think these were really all factors in. And as we all know, the Wild have been continuing to retool this team, change things up to hopefully contend next year. Now, whether you think they're making the right moves or the wrong moves is perfectly up to you. Obviously, there's a lot of controversial things regarding the Wild as of late, but they expect to make plenty more moves, and this made a lot of sense for San Jose's side of things. They get a goaltender where, yes, they had Dell and Jones last year. Everyone seemingly doesn't like Jones, and I understand given his recent play, but Jones doesn't seem like he's going anywhere, so that will be their tandem for next season. But getting back to Dubnyk real quick, what a story he was. Last season, he had a much better year with 31 wins, 28 losses, 6 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 913, and a goals allowed average of 2.54 and a save percentage of 913. But what happened during 2013 and 2014 is really telling of his character and how much he has overcome in his NHL career. He was traded first off by the Edmonton Oilers to the Nashville Predators in return for Matt Hendricks, and after that he only had a cup of coffee with the Preds. I believe only 2 games he was a part of, and then shortly after that he was then dealt to the Montreal Canadiens, in which he didn't even play a game for them. It was just for future considerations. I don't even know if there were ever the details that came out on that deal as to what the Preds were receiving, but nonetheless, given the Canadiens' goaltending situation at the time, they didn't even have Dubnyk in the NHL for the remainder of that year. So Dubnyk played, I believe, around 18 games with the Hamilton Bulldogs, their AHL team, which is crazy just knowing where he came from to where he was in just a short span of time. So 2013-2014 season was definitely not faring him well. And then he was at the end of his contract, so which he took a one-year deal with the Arizona Coyotes going into the 2014-2015 season. Played a decent amount of games with him, I believe just under 20 or right around there, and wasn't bad by any means, but then he was dealt again, and this time to the Minnesota Wild. And this is where his career really resurrected and took a turn for the best, something quite remarkable. In his first season that year, and just 39 games played because he was dealt throughout the season, he had 27 wins, 9 regulation losses, 2 overtime losses, had a goals allowed average of 1.78 goals allowed. That is ridiculous. And a save percentage of .936. Remarkable numbers. He went on to win his first and only Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. Just fantastic for him, of course. He was 3rd in Vezina voting that year. Yeah, he was a Vezina finalist. And I believe he was also 4th in the Hart voting. So phenomenal numbers there. Dubnyk, I was so happy for him, seeing him finally get what he deserves and really coming into his own, becoming a mainstay in Minnesota, finally feeling comfortable in his career. It took him quite some time, but it was awesome to see how much had changed in just a year from the 2013-2014 season, being moved around constantly, looking like his career may be over in the NHL, to being an NHL mainstay as a #1 for the Minnesota Wild for 8 consecutive period of time, really up until now. And his other best season, in my opinion, and statistically speaking, was in the 16-17 season, which in 65 games played, he had 40 wins, which is a career high currently for him, 19 regulation losses and 5 overtime losses, a goals allowed average of 2.25, and a save percentage of .923. So remarkable numbers there. Cannot say enough good things about the guy, and I hope things are doing well for him in his personal life as well. And hoping that those things are off his shoulders now going into next season. This is great for San Jose, because the fact that they don't take on his entire cap hit of $4.33 million for the final year of his contract, they can just hope that he has a bounce back year, which I think there's a very solid chance he will, with the likes of Marty Jones. And hopefully the San Jose Sharks, before you know it, are contending back for a playoff spot. My guess, a wildcard spot at this point in time when it comes to playoffs next year. So time will tell on that front, but I really like this deal for San Jose. The fact that they only gave up, little to nothing when it comes to these picks, I should say, the 5th and 7th round in the 2022 draft, and they're getting half that salary retained. That's huge for them, because if you look at their current cap hit now, with that in place, they have around 9.9 mil, so just under 10 to work with this offseason. So they still may be able to re-sign some guys like the Melko Karlssons of the world, Joe Thornton if he wishes to come back on another one-year deal, and other guys in that lineup on defense, because they have some UFAs there as well. So hopefully for their sake, they continue this retool. I really like both these moves for them, and while this is a flooded goalie market, they got Devan Dubnyk for little to nothing for just 1 year. So I don't think you can really have much harm in doing that. In Minnesota, they free up more cap space, but I don't like the fact that they had to retain half that salary. That worries me for them. I thought it was an easier win for them in this situation when it comes to the trade if they weren't retaining anything, but because they're retaining half, I don't like it nearly as much for them as I originally did. We know that they are looking for another goaltender this offseason. I touched on who that could possibly be in my Donato video as well, so make sure to check that out if you haven't. But the goaltending market is filled. I expect them to go for a guy, hopefully a young, controllable guy. Matt Murray always comes to mind, but I know the latest rumor mill is between him and the Blackhawks, because they've talked about an extension, but things reached a stalemate there at this point in time. So I'm not sure, but nonetheless, they expect to get another goaltender. I don't believe they trust in Kaapo Kähkönen, at least in this point in time. They're going to stick most likely with Stalock for another year as part of that tandem, and we'll see what happens going forward. But the Wild, when you look at their current cap situation, it could have been a lot better. I really don't think they needed to retain the salary, but clearly they did to make this deal happen, at least. They, of course, are now going to be dealing with a cap situation of 15.48 mil in cap space for this offseason. So I expect them to make plenty more moves. I believe this is really only just the beginning for them. I think there's a solid chance Matt Dumba still could be dealt this offseason. They're looking, of course, for a #1 centerman, or at least a top 6 centerman, so be on the lookout for some more moves in the future. The Wild, they're really mixing some things up. I'm not sure how I feel about all the deals. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like, and I think when it comes to these deals today, the San Jose Sharks come out the better team in the end. That's just my personal opinion, though. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, guys, let me know in the comments below. Sharks fans, Minnesota Wild fans, I would love to hear it regardless if you like or dislike the trade. Make sure to tell me, and make sure to stay tuned for my live stream I will be doing, yes, tomorrow for the first round of this NHL draft. We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to be live streaming an hour before the draft even takes place, where we can have discussions, give our predictions as to who we think is going where, some trades we may see, and then our genuine reactions to seeing exactly what happens in the NHL draft. It's going to be so much fun. I hope to see you guys there, and I just simply can't wait. It's going to be a crazy week, and this is only just the beginning. So thank you all so much, guys. Again, if you like this kind of hockey content, hit a like, hit subscribe. As always, it means a ton, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon.